Hi, I'm Cassie Sanchez with Farmers Insurance. I have my friend here, Jason from PostNet of Lafayette. A great printing resource for anybody out there. Well worth the drive, even if you're not local, and they can also mail it out to you. So the first question is, how did you get into owning a PostNet, Jason?
So the actual PostNet came from a gentleman who was a customer of mine while I worked at Office Depot. He had a failing store, and he approached me and said, "Hey, I know that you have taken this Office Depot location and made it the 5th busiest printing center in the Office Depot system in the Western US. Can you fix my store?" And I thought, well, that sounds like an interesting challenge. And so 3 years later, I had his store fixed, and I was approached by another PostNet owner who asked if I wanted to buy their store. And so long story short, well, that wasn't actually even a long story, but I ended up owning this PostNet here in Lafayette. Started in print back in '96 in Las Vegas, and over the years decided that I wanted to move my little family here to Colorado, and I've been enjoying myself here ever since.
So then, what is the most fun thing you've ever been asked to print?
So there's 2 things that come to mind. One is a cookbook that we did for one of the centers in Arkansas for the National Park Service. And that one was the most challenging thing I've probably ever printed, because every time I looked at it, my mouth started drooling and I'd get splotches on the paper. But that was one. The other was a couple of years ago, the president of the Franchisee Association for PostNet, on the very last run of the year, very wet snow up in Steamboat Springs, tore her shoulder all to pieces in an accident. And so the annual conference was just a couple of weeks later. And so what we did is we printed a full-size stand-up of her and her husband, and then took that stand-up to conference. Instead of her being able to come, she zoomed into a couple things. But instead of being in a hospital bed, the attendees there were able to interact with her. And so we've got a lot of photos of her and her husband standing there with the folks. And then each of the people that interacted with her then had an opportunity to sign the back of her stand-up. And it turned into a really neat get well card that then after the conference, my wife and I drove up to Steamboat Springs to present them with themselves. And so we've got some cool pictures of them standing next to themselves, and they really were appreciative of the over 100 signatures and well wishes that were on the back of that stand-up. So we printed a 6-foot version of them that then were able to attend the conference. So that was fun.
She wasn't there to have people sign her cast. So that's
exactly.
a good,
so
yeah.
We signed her stand-up.
Not many people can say that they've had that done. No.
Yeah, it's not that there's a lot of doppelgangers out there, but very rarely do you get to meet your own. So.
All right. Was there ever a time, as there usually always is, right, in retail, when something didn't go as you wanted it to go? And then what did you do about it? What happened?
So probably the biggest thing that didn't go right was a situation where we had 6,000 pieces of a form that were supposed to be double-sided, and we didn't realize. So we ended up with 6 cases of paper that were wrong. And what we ended up doing with it was, well, because we couldn't go through and separate every single other page, we reprinted it, but we ended up with a whole lot of Scratchpads that lasted us for years and years. To whenever we wrote a note, it was on the back of one of these forms. That was one. Another, I mean, we've had lots of situations where we've had to fix something, but for the most part, it's an opportunity to grow the business, to grow the relationship, and we've found ways to make it right, whether we reprint the project or whether we give people discounts or whether we just give people a credit on their next item. That one's probably the biggest thing that ever went wrong, but we've had lots of opportunities to grow our relationships with others as we go through the system.
Yeah,